Welcome to This Explainer. Tell me, do you actually think criminals are just born completely evil? Are thieves and killers really a totally different species from us? Well, prepare to change your perspective. See, crime isn't just about breaking laws. It's a messy mix of intense pressure, humiliation, and totally broken systems. So today we're exploring the hidden psychology behind it. Massive corruption almost always starts with tiny, justified lies. Everyone does it, right? People constantly use that moral self-justification to play the victim before doing something awful. Talk about societal hypocrisy. We immediately judge someone stealing food, but often praise ruthless corporate exploiters as smart. Honestly, harsh punishments rarely stop crime. People fear the absolute certainty of getting caught way more than the penalty. It literally takes just 5 minutes of sudden unchecked rage or deep humiliation to completely ruin a lifetime. And prison? It rarely rehabilitates. Instead, it often acts like a networking event that just teaches new criminal tricks. Crime isn't just an individual failing, guys. It absolutely thrives wherever widespread corruption and high unemployment create fertile ground. The craziest part? The most dangerous criminals usually aren't violent. They're cold-blooded fraudsters sitting comfortably behind a sleek desk. A weapon hurts one person, sure, but one slick scammer can literally vaporize hundreds of families' life savings instantly. Your best defense against this? Always distrust excessive charm, judge patterns over words, and stay completely silent when angry. Ultimately, understanding the law means looking deeply into our own human nature, wounded pride, and super weak societal systems. So I'll leave you with this. What's the true root of crime? Is it greed, anger, or unchecked power?
Let's really dive into this whole born evil idea. It's so incredibly easy, right, to sit back and assume that people who break the rules are just wired differently. We kind of want to believe that evil is something you're simply born with, because that keeps it safely far away from our own lives. But reality? It's far more complicated than that. Crime is driven by a web of factors that are often hiding in plain sight.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the circumstance of crime, the slippery slope, double standards of justice, the 5-minute mistake, and finally, the systemic threat.
Starting off with Section 1, the circumstance of crime. Before we go any further, I want us to try and blur that thick, solid line we draw between us and them. Because most crime isn't actually committed by evil people who wake up deciding to be villains. It's about circumstance. Look at these immense pressures: extreme financial hardship, deep humiliation, heavy debt, addiction, sheer desperation, or even just the sudden belief that they won't get caught. The really uncomfortable truth here is that under these exact conditions, even ordinary, otherwise good people can be pushed to make terrible, life-altering choices. It's often the circumstance, not just the character, that dictates the action.
Let's move to Section 2, the slippery slope.
So, if someone doesn't transform into a master criminal overnight, how do they actually get there? Major fraud or organized crime rarely starts with a massive Hollywood-style heist. It's a slow progression. It usually kicks off with a really small lie. Then step 2, maybe a minor bribe or a fudge signature. Step 3 is that incredibly dangerous internal whisper of just this once. And before they know it, step 4, they are deeply involved in major fraud. Once a person crosses that very first tiny line, the next boundary becomes just a little bit easier to cross. Crime grows through repetition. But how on earth do they live with themselves while sliding down that slope? Well, it's all about rationalization. They tell themselves, hey, everyone does it, or I had no choice, this is for survival. Moral self-justification is honestly a criminal's absolute strongest weapon. Before actually committing the crime, they essentially convince themselves they're innocent. That powerful rationalization is the psychological armor making the whole thing possible.
Which brings us to Section 3, double standards of justice.
Now we're shifting from individual rationalization to how society acts as a mirror, and wow, the hypocrisy is staggering. Think about it. If a poor person steals food, the judgment is swift and harsh. But when an executive commits large-scale fraud, evades massive taxes, or exploits workers, they're far too often labeled as smart or savvy. We absolutely need to wake up to the fact that the most damaging crimes don't always happen on dark street corners. They happen in well-lit corporate offices. And this double standard totally bleeds into how we try to stop crime. We tend to think harsh laws are the answer, but an effective deterrent
It's actually the belief that getting caught is highly likely. People fear being caught way more than they fear the punishment itself. Harsh laws just don't reduce crime if the offender thinks they can get away with it. It's the speed and certainty of justice that truly act as the real deterrents.
Moving right along to Section 4, the 5-minute mistake.
So we've talked about slow, calculated corporate crime. But what about physical violence? The crucial point here is that not every violent act is some calculated master plan. Often, it happens in just 5 minutes of intense emotion. In minute 1, there's humiliation, or maybe a breakup. By minute 3, there's sudden, blinding rage. At minute 5, the violent act happens. The result? 50 years of a lifetime completely destroyed. These brief, volatile flashes of emotion shatter entire futures instantly.
And what happens to those individuals after that 5-minute mistake? There's a huge, tragic disconnect in our system. Society assumes prison equals automatic reformation, but the reality is it often just teaches new criminal behavior. We assume rehabilitation happens, but in reality, prisons frequently build dangerous new criminal networks. We hope for safe reintegration, but instead, it creates an intense stigma, making a return to normal life nearly impossible. We have to realize that punishment and rehabilitation are rarely the same thing.
This leads us right into Section 5, the systemic threat.
Crime isn't just an individual failure. It is a massive, macro-level systems problem. It absolutely thrives where there's opportunity. We're talking corruption, slow justice, high unemployment, deep social distrust, and weak enforcement. These environmental factors are the true breeding grounds where large-scale criminality naturally takes root and grows. It's a symptom of a much larger, broken ecosystem.
Understanding this systemic view means we need to totally redefine who we consider dangerous. Yes, one person hurt by a knife is a terrible, tragic reality of physical violence. But as horrific as that is, the damage is generally localized to a single, unfortunate victim.
Contrast that physical violence with a cold-minded financial manipulator. Hundreds of families can be completely destroyed all at once by a scammer, a trust abuser, or an emotional exploiter. A knife hurts one person, but a scam can wipe out the life savings and stability of entire communities in an instant. The most harmful person is very often the one who abuses trust from behind a desk, totally detached from the physical violence they cause.
So with all this in mind, what is your best defense? Awareness is everything. I want you to walk away from this feeling empowered. Be highly cautious of fast money promises. Distrust excessive charm. Judge people's patterns, not just their smooth words. And absolutely never accept everyone does it as a valid reason to cross a boundary. Understanding human nature is unequivocally the best way to protect yourself.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought. What do you think is the true root of crime? Is it greed? Is it unchecked anger? Or is it the abuse of power? I want you to head down to the comments right now and tell me your thoughts. To truly understand crime, we have to understand ourselves. Thank you so much for watching this explainer today. If this deep dive changed your perspective, please hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe so we can keep exploring together. Catch you in the next one.